Hello everyone, so today I'm gonna be explaining to you a little bit about lung sounds. So are you ready? Let's get started. A brief reminder for this part as well. If you have any kinds of complaints with your lungs, please do consult your doctor because this video is not meant as a medical advice. And if I do make some mistakes throughout the whole of this video, please let me know in the comments down below. And please bear with me for a while because I'm also currently still studying. So now let's move on. I hope you can now see the screen. Which is the breath sounds. This is the excerpt I take from Barbara Bates, and this is now we're going to first look at the main or the original breath sounds of the lungs. The normal breath sounds consist of the vesicular breath sound, which is usually heard over most of both lungs on auscultation by the stethoscope. In vesicular breath sound, the ratio is usually 3:1, which means that's the inspiratory sounds. When you inspire, it's much longer than the expiratory sound. When you exhale air. And this intensity will be soft and the pitch will be low. Now let me share you the sound of a vesicular normal breath sounds in a while. Yep, I have found it. Right? Notice that this is another variation of the normal vesicular sound. Yep, in that vesicular sound, we notice that the inspiratory sound is longer than the expiratory sound, and there is and it's a soft, low pitch sound. Next, moving on to bronchovesicular, which is in this case, let me share you a little bit, right, this one. The bronchovesicular, this sound is 1:1, which means that the ratio of the inspiratory sound is equal to the expiratory sound. And the intensity in this case is the intermediate, and the pitch is intermediate as well. And it is usually heard in the first and second interspaces anteriorly on the first and second intercostal space, and also between the scapula in the back. So if we look at here, there's also a bronchial sound in which the expiratory sounds last a little bit longer than the inspiratory sounds. And this one is usually loud and the pitch is very high, and also it is heard over the maenoidrium. The maenoidrium is in your sternum, which means that it is in the proximal airways or the largest airways. This is very similar to the tracheal sound, but in the tracheal sound, the inspiratory and expiratory sounds are almost equal, and it's heard over the trachea here. So why this is called bronchovesicular is that it's because the bronchovesicular sound has the quality of both the vesicular and also the bronchial sound. The quality of the vesicular sound is manifested in the form of the continuous sound. So there is no gap in between the sounds. But notice here that in the bronchial sounds, there's a gap. So after you inspire, there's a gap, a pause first before the expiration starts. So let me share you the sound of a bronchial sound first, and then later on the bronchovesicular sound. So this one is the bronchial sound. Now, wait for a minute. So notice that the expiration sound is noticeably longer than in the previous vesicular sound. And this one is the bronchovesicular. Right. So the expiratory sound is more prominent than the vesicular one, but in bronchovesicular, it's still continuous. But in tracheobronchial or bronchial sound, there's a gap. So and then pause and then that like yeah. So moving on to the adventitious breath sounds. Here we have actually 4 adventitious breath sounds. The first one is the wheeziest. This the first one would be stridor, but it's not in this slide. So stridor is because of the narrowing of the upper airway, which causes a very distressing sound, and it is very characteristic. And we can differentiate it with wheezing. Wheezing is usually sinusoidal, musical, and prolonged, and it is usually high pitch with hissing or shrill quality. And how the pathophysiology, how wheezes happens is that because of the narrowing of the lower airways. So remember that the upper airways is from the vocal cords upwards, and then the lower airways is from the vocal cords downwards. So the lower airways, which is usually in the bronchioles, which is inside your lungs, it might become inflamed. Yeah, inflammation might happen, so that edema happens. The the airway will narrow, and because the air passes through that narrowed space, then there is a wheezing sound. However, in the stridor happens in the upper airways, and this sound is very distressing. The sound suggests, this requires immediate attention, because um, we know that the lower airways have a lot of like branches, but the upper airways has only that one tracheal, before it goes to the trachea, it has that one airway. So if something happens, for example, epiglottitis, inflammation of the epiglottis, then it will be blocked completely, and that is why it is an emergency case. Now let me share you the sound of the um, normal. This is not normal, I'm sorry, wheezing. So these adventitious breath sounds happens on top of the on the original breath sounds, which consists of the last page. The yeah. So let me just play it for a while. Yep, there is wheezing. Please remember that the wheezing happens in the expiratory phase. There is that slight high pitch sound in the expiration. While let me share you as well a stridor. Stridor. Yeah. So it's very distressing, right? So it in stridor it happens in both the inspiration and expiration phase. Yep. So next on, for the adventitious breath sounds is we have the crackles or rails. In Indonesian terms, we also have the ronkai, the low pitch wheezing, is also called as the ronki kering or the wheezing. Yep. So ronki kering, ronkai, or low pitch wheezing happens because of the mucus secretions in the lower airways, which causes when air flows through that airway, the mucus will obstruct it, and these mucus will vibrate, and this will cause the low pitch wheezing sound. And it's very similar to the wheezing, but how do you differentiate between wheezing and the ronchi or the low pitch wheezing is by asking the patient to cough, because the ronchi is caused by the dry ronchi is caused by the existence of the mucus, that if the patient coughs, these adventitious breath sounds will disappear. On the other hand, because the wheezing is caused by the narrow airway itself, it's not because of the mucus, so there will be no change when the patient coughs. And there's also the crackles or rails, or what is called as ronchi of the ronchi, wet ronchi, ronchi basah in Indonesian. So how let me show you the sound of first the low pitch wheezing or the ronchi, the dry ronchi, in just a little bit. Right. So there's also the coarse crackles or ronchi basah kasar, and this is different with the previous sound. It's like this. Notice that this one is like very similar to the sound of you passing something very thin. Yep. And last but not least is the pleural friction rub. I do not have the slides here, but pleural friction rub is essentially because of the rubbing. So we know that there's a fistular pleura which covers the lung, attaches to the lung, and there's also the parietal pleura which is in the chest wall. It's attaches to the chest wall. So there's a space between that, which is commonly filled with a little bit of fluid. But if there is inflammation, then that space this will disappear, and then the parietal and fistular pleura will rub against each other, causing the sound what we call as the pleural friction rub. And this sound is similar to you like sliding stones against each other. So it's that kind of sound. Let me share you that. Yep, so it's different, right, from the crackles one. Let me show you just a little bit of a recap from the vesicular sound. It's like this. And then moving on to the tracheobronchial sound. Notice that gap again. And then the bronchovesicular, which combines the two. And then to the additional or adventitious lung sounds, first from the strider, and then to the ones with the wheezing, which is very commonly heard in expiratory phase. And then to the fine crackles, and then there's also the coarse crackles. Yep, both are crackles, but the first one is the fine crackles, and the second one is the coarse crackles. I do not have the sound for the low pitch wheezing or the ronchi, I guess. Yep, and the last but not least, we also have the pleural friction rub. Okay, so that marks the end of this video. Thank you so much for listening up until the end, and see you next time.